Hi, Lorraine here for GoGo Getaway and for our June Getaway retreat. So this is layout 1 of Reels of Colour. So it's using the Vicky Bouton colour study and some lovely cut files that I've designed for this class with Viewmasters. So this first layout is actually going to be using the large one, which is that half, so crescent of the Viewmaster. So I just bring down that white cardstock, mixing up some of the paints from these lovely watercolours. I've used a little bit of yellow and white to create like a cream or off-white. I felt that gave a really nice sort of like almost like vintage tone for the Viewmasters, because if anyone's got some still in their lofts, attics or cupboards, I'm sure the white of these is probably discoloured a little bit. So I thought that was a perfect opportunity to just create that effect. It also just brings down that stark white for using on the layout. I mean, of course you can use any of the colours, any of the tones that work with your photos if you want to go with a different colour. So just mixing up some more of this white with the yellow and just doing a wash all over. It's curling slightly, as you can see in the photo, but that's really not a problem. It dries fairly flat, and once it's stuck onto the layer it stays put, so that's not a problem at all. So you've got all the little apertures cut out of the Viewmaster ready. So the concept for layout 1 of Reels of Colour is to use this large oversized Viewmaster and as a main feature on your layout, and we do back those little apertures with one of the papers and some of the colours. Again, you can change those up. You could even add little photos behind there, or if you've got like tickets or something like that, you know, to document a photo or trip, you know, those would look great underneath as well, so you can really make it your own. So just doing the sort of final parts of this yellow wash or off-white wash. It's funny, when I turned it upside down I thought, oh, it looks a bit like a lemon as well. There, perfect. So this paper that's got these blocks of colour on the back, you'll see that it's got the frame around it as well. I'm actually going to use that frame, so I'm just coming in here and gutting that section out and leaving just a very narrow border that dimensions are on your instructions. So I've just set that aside. Set that aside for adding to the main layout later. So I'm just coming here, and from the squares, just choosing what colours that I'd like to use. So it really doesn't matter what ones you use. The piece of paper that's left over we do use for various other things, but again it really isn't crucial which ones you use and which ones you don't. So I do follow the gradient of colours that's on that paper, the order of it. Thought, okay, it's done that way for a reason. Let's not change that up and try and get clever. So as you can see, I've actually sort of cut into where I've used a pink. I've used perhaps a darker pink than a lighter. I've got a black and white photo here. I found that worked really well with this range, really sort of pops from it. It's actually a photo again from my previous layout. If you've seen it from the early start class, Wholehearted, was from my daughter's wedding. I think I got about 2,000 photos to get through, so I'm sure lots will feature Hopefully you won't get too bored of them. This one is the party in the evening, and a jazz player, or no, a saxophone player, sorry, which is why the title later on we see me add it is sax. Yeah, really fun party. The girls are having great fun there, daughter and bridesmaids. It was a great one to use with colour study. So there I am, just adding them flat to the back. I didn't raise them. I make them dimensional because there's going to be lots of dimension tonight. So there we go. So I'm quite happy with that kind of like composition there. Thinking it's going to be that way up, and the photo at the bottom is kind of like a 2/3 split kind of design, really. You'll see as we go on. So I'm just deciding what that needs to be backed on. I'm thinking about other things that I'm going to add. What am I going to use from this? The second layout in this class, I've also sort of keeping in mind while selecting products and what parts to use. So I'm just coming there and cutting right through where the tags are, and then the strips, to separate those two pieces, because I think I'm actually going to create a shelf and ground that Viewmaster on something, so that's what I'm thinking about here. So I'm just cutting some of those journal strips off. I love the contrast to the black, and adding some sort of subtitles, so I don't want to accidentally cut into those by using the back of that paper. So I'm cutting them out now so that they're saved safely for using. There, so I'm coming back to work on the layout. Now I've got those pieces saved nicely. So there's that frame. It's got those hues of colour around. I'm actually going to stick that on top of that lovely teal paper. So there's no trying to stick that onto a flimsy frame or anything. It literally goes onto that paper, which is staying 12 by 12. And you see how I positioned it with those colours still showing, of actually, so it mirrors the order of colours on the Viewmaster. I mean, that's not crucial, but that's how I wanted it to be. So I've got the purples in bottom left corner, and ending up in those oranges and yellows the right bottom. So I'm just cutting off that black strip there. Decided that actually that contrast below the Viewmaster would be perfect, so I'm just trimming that to size. Also, that teal piece that's on that strip, I actually tore off. Well, I cut the top, but then tore off the bottom part to just create a little bit of texture and dimension. And it looks nice, the colour on the colour, but with the white core showing from the rip. So they're just sticking that just slightly underneath, just trimming off the end bit there and make it the same length as the Viewmaster. Again, it just creates that a kind of shelf that sit on, so it doesn't look like it's free floating. So I'm going to mount my photo, and I actually do that onto the orange and yellow lighter section of that paper. Because my photos are on the right hand side, I just again wanted to kind of mimic that, the colours on that side. Lots of crazy colours going on, but just those little tricks actually sort of help ground things and make it a little bit less chaotic amongst all the busy colours. So that beautiful speciality vellum, I just loved that. I loved the wheels, but I also very much like that gold grid. I'm going to actually mount my photo again onto that. So I've left a wider border to the bottom. And it just adds in that gold sparkle as well. So you see there, again coming to just tear that edge, the same as that teal border below the black. Just to create a bit of continuity of the design. And just having that wider border at the bottom means that my photo, once it's mounted on these two layers, actually overlaps that border. So again, it helps sort of bring your eye through the page rather than stopping abruptly at the edge of the Viewmaster. So I'm just curling up the edge of the Viewmaster just to add a bit of interest. So there's some of the journal tags that are actually from that strip that I've fussy cut out. So you can see here I'm sort of playing with how I'm going to cluster those and layer those down. Again, it just creates, you know, that added sort of shelf for the photo. Some interest, bringing in some of the colours now from the left of the page. So like that bluey indigo. Helps draw your eye from the colours across the page diagonally. I think I cut out all these strips to sort of test them out. So if that's something you want to do so you don't accidentally cut into them, you can absolutely do that all at once when cutting this paper, rather than having to reach the trimmer back and forth. So I use this pink and yellowy colours. Again, just for that another layer underneath. Just coming there to distress that so it doesn't lay quite so flat on the layout. Just tucking it under that teal torn strip. There, and you can see there I've also got the two tags now stuck down. So I'm coming in now with some of those lovely die cuts. I love them. Some of them are really quite large, but that's also fun, especially with the quirky colours. But I do find the borders, the white borders, quite thick on some of these, depending on what layout I'm sort of, doing. So here I'm actually just trimming back that white. It's a little bit fussy, but I really like the effect once that white is cut off. But of course, if you prefer not to do that, not into fussy cutting, you can absolutely leave those white borders on that still work. So from some of the clusters, I've cut some of the pink and orange blossoms too. If you can hear that noise in the background, that's my puppy having a drink of water, which is really funny. I don't know until I play this back if it's picked it up, but I'm mentioning it anyway in case you think I've got a gurgling tummy. Hopefully that will give you a bit of a chuckle. Got to bring a bit of humour. Not bringing the puppy though. If we're sitting in hopefully as planned, if we're sitting in the hotel scrapping all together, my puppy is not going to be with us, so don't panic. Okay, so I've added that yellow blossom there. Again, cut off the white border at the bottom right. Just deciding what pieces I want to add under there. Again, I've tried to keep on that right hand side the yellows and the oranges like that are in the Viewmaster, and like the pinks, and going into the purples on the left top corner. So you can see there I'm just sort of trying different little blossoms, seeing what works, seeing what I can bring in. So here I'm playing with those black journal, or they're flags really, old banners that we cut from that strip paper earlier. I'm going to be popping them up on foam, just so they're raised from the layout. I really love how they these kind of ground those clusters, but bring back the black from the strip, the photo. It just really makes, you know, good sort of anchoring points really, but also adds some other cool sort of subtitles. They're fairly generic wording on those, so should work with most of your photos and subjects that you've chosen for this class. Yeah, so I'm kind of tucking that underneath as well, so some of the blossoms overlap just slightly, so it just all joins up. And there, just distressing those edges, which becomes highly addictive. Once you've done one piece, that's it, everything gets distressed. There, just making sure I'm happy with the positioning of that. Yeah, just holding it up just to make sure that I'm happy with the layering. So I'm using the stamps on this layout too. So actually what you can see there that I'm taking off, it's again in some kind of weird slow motion and almost like freeze frames. Might not be when it plays back, so hopefully not. So there I've used those leaves, that double leaf there, and black stays on. I'm actually just stamping that onto the lighter colours there of this paper, and then we'll be coming on to fussy cut them out. It just creates a little bit of colour behind by not doing them, stamping them on white, and makes it a little less risky than stamping it directly onto the background. Because then if you're not happy with how they look on the layout, then of course you don't need to stick them down. Yeah, so you can see how have a little bit of play, how they go sort of underneath those clusters. You wouldn't think that you could make positioning a tiny little fussy cut leaves quite so complicated, but I think I did. I think they moved around quite a little bit, but I really like how they look, because it just adds a little bit of again the blacks and the stamped image and some more blossoms. That contrast of the bright colours with the black really does create a wow effect. So you can see what I mean here. Can you imagine if I'd stamped them directly? I would not have been happy with where they were, I'm sure. So this way at least you can move them until you're exactly happy with them. These stamps are a great way to make more your own ephemera this way, you know, and in a way that, you know, is a contrast rather than busy colours. If you wanted a less solid effect, those watercolour paints, you can actually, I did try making actually stamping with those, and that worked too. Obviously it's a more subtle effect and colour on the colour may not show as well, but if you wanted, you know, more of that shadow effect rather than the bold contrast of black stays on, that could absolutely work for you. Now my puppy's yawning in the background. Okay, so we're coming on here to some tiny leaves that I'm adding from those stamped images. Again, just to break up that bright colour, adding contrast. And Wilfred has decided that he would like to add to to the voiceover for this class. I think he's letting you know he's not happy that I'm away. There, so I'm cutting out one of these lovely tags. So this one here that's actually got the Viewmaster on it. Now this is a class all about the Viewmasters, so why not add another one? So I'm going to just fussy cut that from that tag. I'm going to use that as if it is that kind of reflection. So like if we had the Viewmaster over a pond, you'd see its reflection. And I'm going to use it just under the photo and those little journal strips. Really happy with how that adds interest to that right hand side. So I go really crazy here for cutting out, fussy cutting from that one of the journal cards with the stars on. I really want some stars on this layout because it's an evening and a party, and I thought that would be cool. But they're really tiny to fussy cut. Obviously if you've got a star punch, that may be quicker and easier. So here I am thinking, how am I going to add some other things? So you'll just see they're running along that border, black border. I've used the border stamp, decorative one, added the title, Sax. Now doing some journaling, just in that space to the left of the small Viewmaster. Really happy how this turned out. I really hope you've enjoyed my class and looking forward to seeing your examples too.